What happens to Russia after Vladimir Putin is gone? To answer that, we first have to understand what has already happened inside Russia. For years, the Kremlin has shaped a specific narrative, one in which Russia is not the aggressor, but the target. A country under constant threat. Throughout the war in Ukraine, Putin framed the conflict as NATO encroaching on Russia, threatening its very survival. Russians were shown maps suggesting they were being surrounded. The message was clear. This wasn't a war of choice, it was a war of defense. Over time, that idea expanded. It didn't just legitimize the invasion of Ukraine, it normalized escalation, even presenting the use of nuclear weapons as a real possibility. In some cases, the suggestion went further, that Ukraine and even NATO itself could warrant such a response. This is what propaganda does at scale. It doesn't just explain events, it reshapes how people interpret reality. But few in the West fully grasp how far this narrative has spread. Few follow the internal messaging closely enough to understand how deeply it has taken hold. And that matters, because propaganda doesn't end when a war ends. It lingers in institutions, in culture, in the way people think they understand the world. So what happens if Russia can't win? Putin has shown signs that he refuses to lose. Some leaders don't back down, they escalate, and he may be willing to go all in. A nuclear strike on Kiev, or a smaller target, a tactical nuclear weapon used not to destroy a country, but as a warning to force surrender. And then what? What is NATO supposed to do in that moment? Accept it? Allow nuclear weapons to be used without consequence? What if another country responds? What if Poland, or another NATO member, decides that crossing that line means war? But the real danger may not end with Putin. It may begin after he's gone. Because for years, blame for the war in Ukraine hasn't been directed inward. It's been redirected outward. Toward NATO, toward Ukraine, toward the United States, turning them into existential enemies. And that narrative doesn't disappear when a leader does. It lingers. It's much easier to mobilize hundreds of thousands of people by telling them their country is under threat than admitting we were wrong. For years, Russians have been conditioned to believe that the West wants to destroy them. And if Russia loses in Ukraine, then what? Do those in power suddenly admit the truth? Or do they double down, blaming the West even more, convincing the population that the danger is growing? This is especially true of weak governments that fear collapse. They often take greater risks. What does a nation do when it truly believes it is under threat of destruction? And what if the next leader believes it too? That's when things become truly dangerous. Because a country that believes it is cornered doesn't act rationally, it escalates. And that's where the stakes change. Because the danger isn't just what Russians believe, it's the means they have to act on it. The world is changing. Technology is reshaping how wars are fought, unlocking capabilities far more powerful than most people realize. A new book, Operation Babylon, examines these emerging technologies and the risks they pose. It explores how they could redefine global conflict in ways most people haven't considered. Not decades from now, but as we speak. What if ballistic missile submarines could be tracked with near-perfect precision? What if drones, not missiles, could deliver nuclear weapons with almost no warning? What if the difference between a civilian drone and one carrying a nuclear weapon was impossible to detect until it was too late? This isn't science fiction. It's the new world we are living in. A world where deterrence begins to collapse, where defense systems are overwhelmed, where decision-making is compressed from minutes to seconds. And now, combine that reality with a country that believes it is under existential threat. A nation conditioned for years to believe its enemies are closing in and on the verge of destroying them. That's when the risk is no longer theoretical. It becomes possible.